Welcome to Pro Audio Profiles. My name is Brendan Decora, and each week I'll be hosting different guests, mainly engineers and producers, but also people from across the industry. Enjoy the show. On this week's show, we have Rafa Sardina. He's won 18 Grammys and has credits with Stevie Wonder, John Legend, Alejandro Sanz, and many more. Enjoy. First and foremost, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's awesome. It's great to have you on here. I'd like to start by just going over your backstory. Tell me how you got to where you are, that kind of thing.
Well, my story, I think, is pretty standard in many ways. I started as a musician, trying to make it as a musician.
Right.
I thought I was going to be an artist when I was only like 7 or 8 years old. That was my dream, to become an artist. I actually even told my mom I was going to be an artist. But my passion was guitar. So when I thought an artist, I wasn't thinking like an artist, like singing, like a pop artist or anything like that. I was just thinking an instrumentalist, right? So that was my
like
thing.
Santana or something.
Yes,
yeah.
Something.
Nice.
I play a little bit of classical because that's how you start. Take your first steps. But I really like rock music, so I was in bands, over the years, And when I was only like 15, 16, I had my first studio experience. Just out of coincidence, my cousin was in a band he played with. I was always hanging with them, and they recorded a full album. Okay. So I was on those sessions. I still have pictures of those sessions, and I was super young, and that was the first time I was confronted with the studio experience. Right. How different it was from the fact of, going to the rehearsal room and just rehearsing and working the songs. And I thought like, wow, so now what? And the whole band thought that way because I think nobody in the band really had much experience. Okay. So it was almost an equal process for all of us. Right. And I do remember that many years later, actually, as recent as 5 years ago, the engineer who engineered that session, who I know, who was in a very famous band, by the way, called Nego Gorriak, very, very internationally famous band later on. He actually told me that was his first session on his own by himself. And he was like freaking out. so I guess that everybody had the same type of experience. Nice. And after that, I started doing live sound. Okay. I found like this promoter who was my first big mentor in my career. Okay. Who I'm actually gonna go see in a couple of months when I go back to Spain. Nice. He was a big promoter of, even with international artists, he will bring big acts, like even, I don't know, really big acts to Spain, northern Spain. But he also managed the whole jazz and folk music and world music scene in France and Spain. So I work with a lot of international, even African artists, Youssou N'Dour and you name it. I mean, so many of them. And also a lot of blues, jazz artists.
And all live sound, right?
All live sound, yeah. Okay. It was all live sound and live production. Right. Because I wasn't just doing front of house or anything like that. I started doing a stage, working as a stage manager. Right. I even did lights. Wow. In some occasions. I mean, I did it all. Yeah. Even tour manager I became for some of the artists, and production manager, and then I did more and more of monitor, being a monitor engineer, and then front of house.
And what size shows? Was it big shows?
It was small to really, really big. Okay. I'm talking like, some of them were like, later on he was actually bringing to Spain artists like the Rolling Stones. Really? So you imagine, I was used to being around those type of big setups, obviously as assistants to the existing production, because usually you don't do much but assist or consulting for them for the venue. But that was my the very beginning, and from then on I was very lucky to get my first major studio opportunity with an artist I did the live sound for, who owned a studio.
Oh, wow.
For a very famous Spanish band called Mocedades.
Right.
And they were like huge in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like really, really huge. Probably one of the top bands. A vocal band, like you could imagine, like sort of like the Take Six of Spain. And I started working sporadically in his studio and learning more and more about studio.
And so how did you take your live sound experience and implement it in the studio? Obviously,
I think
studio is very different from live sound.
I'm so grateful for that, that I had that experience, because on live sound, you only have one freaking chance.
That's why I don't like it.
To make it right.
Can't hit rewind.
But it's super exciting, though.
Yeah.
It's super, super exciting. Once you have done it, and also it has closure. For example, you work on an album, and you know that very well.
Yeah.
You work on an album, and number one, it could never be, maybe it does never get released.
Right.
It has happened to all of us.
Yeah.
I have worked on dozens and dozens of projects that never saw the light of day and never got released. And on the other hand, you work on something, and it might take forever for it to get released. So by the time you get released, and people even make comments about it, you actually already forgot about the freaking project. Like, what? That was like 3 years ago. Or that was like, I don't know, even 16 months ago. Like you are not connected to the project anymore the way people think you are.
Yeah.
You have a remembrance of it, of some of the moments, but you are not truly, there's not an immediacy in the connection. With live sound, it's like, you go, and it's like,
What about the technical side? I mean, obviously there's some differences between studio and live.
No, there are differences, but I would recommend to do it to every studio engineer.
Yeah.
To at least go through the experience, because it really is. I don't know. You become so resourceve when you work on live sound.
That's true.
Because it needs to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if you get electrocuted, hopefully you don't. But I've seen people get actually shocked. Because you are right there. I mean, the song needs to go on and something is not working, and you have to just improvise.
Right.
It's a state of constant improvisation.
Yes.
Which to me, it's also an important element for studio work.
Yeah.
Because, things, not just things, it's not just that things can go bad, but it's also that maybe somebody throws a curveball to you.
Yeah.
The artist or one of the musicians, no, why don't we do it this other way? Oh, God, what if we move the drums over there? Or what if we try to get this kind of sound, this vintage kind of sound like this album? And you go like, oh, shit, all the microphones are wrong. Those are not the right microphones to get that sound. How do we do it? So I guess that it gives you an extra skill for improvisation.
Of course. And then how did you end up in LA? What was your journey?
Well, the thing is that I was around here in San Diego when I was very young, almost 17, because my parents moved to Mexico and the U.S. They were bouncing in between, because of work. I didn't stay. I was going to stay. That was the plan, but I never stayed. I had other, I don't know, I thought that if I went back to Spain where I had more of my, my background was there, the people I knew,
more connections,
the bands I worked with in the past. Plus, back then, obviously, I was pressured into having some kind of career.
Yeah.
And we know this. Back then, we're talking late 80s.
Yeah.
Early 90s. Late 80s, actually, when I made this decision. This wasn't considered a career.
Wait, what? Really?
Isn't it true? Like, people would think like, oh, that hobby of yours.
Right. Exactly.
But so I basically, when I left Spain, I had actually done the bar exam to see what kind of college I could actually get in and what kind of career. So it was a very complex kind of exam, all of the young guys from the country do this exam. So there's a rating system.
Right.
So if you wanted to, for example, to become an engineer of whatever kind, a mechanical engineer, I wanted to apply in a university, you apply to 3 universities in the country, right? And depending on your rating, you'll either get in or not.
Oh, geez.
In any of them or none of them.
Right.
Because somebody else was above your score.
Okay.
So I was very lucky because when I took the exam, I didn't take it seriously, I have to say, because I was leaving the country already. My parents were moving here. I was like, fuck the shit.
Right.
What does it matter, right? And a year later, it did matter because I decided to go back and I need to apply for something. I really like science in general. I really love science. I love music, but I also love science. Mm-hmm. And I went to medical school.
Okay.
And I almost did 4 years of medical school.
Wow.
Well, I was also engineering at the same time.
Right.
So all of this live sound experience that I was telling you about, I did a lot of this while I was in medical school.
Wow, that's crazy.
Till it became unbearable and impossible to do at the same time.
Nice. Huh. Crazy.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. Now thinking about it, sometimes I even think about it. How did they do it?
Right.
How did they manage to actually, keep both interests, in the forefront?
Right.
Yeah.
So then you moved to LA. When did you come here?
I moved to LA because on the 4th year, I went like, fuck this shit. This is what I really want to do. I mean, I knew from the beginning, but obviously I was shooting to have a career. But at the same time, I was thinking, the more I elongate this, the more I wait, the harder it's going to be for... Do you know what my main fear was? That I was going to be a good doctor.
Right.
And I was doing great in school. So that was my fear. And I actually told my girlfriend back then, I told her, shit, I might actually become good at this shit. And then my dreams are gonna...
Right.
how am I gonna, justify not doing it or doing this or getting away from this? So I quit overnight. And it was an overnight decision.
Wow.
And one day, I remember where I was actually by the sea. And in the middle of the week, like a Wednesday or something like that, I had to go back to college the following day, like every day. And I was already even working in the hospital, doing as an intern. And I was like, I'm not going back. And that was the last day I ever...
Damn. Awesome.
That was the moment I ever went back to college. Or went back to the hospital.
Cool. And then you moved to LA after that? Or what led you here?
I look for places where I could actually... I look for places where I could test my abilities. Because up to that point, I was self-taught.
Right.
And I had been learning from great engineers. There was actually a French guy I learned a lot from. And because I toured a lot with him. Right. And he was the chief engineer in one of the most famous studios in northern Spain. Okay. And in France too. Huh. And Jean Focas. And Jean, I was actually always watching him, and I even saw him a couple of times in the studio and all that. And I thought like, well, I know what I know, but what do I really know? Right. Right? Yeah. I was very resourceful doing live sound, but what do I really know? And I was already doing studio sessions, but in a small studio, what did I know? Yeah. So I looked for schools, and I found the first school I could actually afford, which was a small school in Ohio, the recording workshop. Right. And I went there, and it was like a super short program. That's what I could afford at the time, 4-week. Wow. Or 6-week program, something very, very short. Huh. And I did that, and I was like, no, this is it. Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. I remember going back with my cassettes, with my mixes and what I had been working on. And I was thinking like, shit, this is it. I mean, there's no way back. But obviously that was a very short course. And when I attended that, I realized, wow, there's so much I need to learn about. Yeah. So I kept working in Spain for a little while. Actually, it coincided with summertime, and I went on tour. Okay. I worked my ass off. I mean, I didn't sleep for maybe 4 months. Literally. And when people say like, oh, you didn't sleep, no. Try to sleep like 2 hours a day for,
That's crazy.
For 4 months. And I was saving, and I was trying to see how I could get into a more, a higher level kind of school, not trying to get to a college degree or anything like that. I was very pragmatic about it, and I saved enough to go to Full Sail.
Okay.
And this is in 1990, I think.
Wow. I didn't know they were around that long.
I don't know, they were, but they were super small.
Oh, okay.
Super small. I mean, they had like a very small campus, and they didn't have, they have one of their own studios, but the rest of the studios, you had to go to other studios in Orlando to take your, do your practice, practical classes. And that's where I went, and I finished, and that's when I came to LA.
Okay. Okay. And then did you get a job as an assistant at a studio?
I got a job as a runner. Which is what most people should learn, that's what you are going to get.
Yes.
Okay? And for good reason. I mean, at the beginning, no matter how much you think you know. When I came out of Full Sail, I was valedictorian. I was the first in my class. I mean, I worked my ass off because, number one, it was costing me much more than people imagined,
Right.
I remember people going out to dinner and things like that. I never went out to dinner.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to do any of those things.
Exactly.
It sounded like science fiction to me that people could be students and still afford to go out to dinner, or things like that.
Right.
And I remember when I finished, I said like, well, my parents were still living here. Mm-hmm. They were here for about 25 years. They were in San Diego, and I said like, well, where I need to go is really LA. That's where I need to go. I came to LA. They actually offered me an internship. Funny enough, I told the artist that they offered me the internship with, I told him like 3 years ago or 2 years ago during the NAMM during the Tech Awards. It was with Herbie Hancock.
Nice.
They offered me an internship with him, but it was a private studio.
Right.
And I realized, that's not really what I want.
Yeah.
These are the kind of places I want are the ones where I'm going to be exposed to tons of different experiences, different artists, and all that. So I sought internships in 3 places. Ocean Wave Recording, which is where I got in.
Nice.
And then Record Plant and Westlake Audio at the time.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And how long were you at Ocean Way?
I was at Ocean Way on and off, during years, because then I went back to Spain for a period of a year during 94.
Okay.
I knew the earthquake was coming, so I left like 2 months before.
Really?
Or a month before the earthquake.
Dang.
And then came back like...
That's awesome.
6 months after.
Right.
I don't know. But I was in Europe for a little bit actually working some very, very cool projects. But then I came back, and then I got, to work again at Ocean Way for a little bit, and then I became independent.
And that was when Ocean Way was both buildings still,
It was
right?
both buildings. It was 6,000 and 6050 Sunset Boulevard and Record One Studios.
Oh, that's right.
In the Valley,
Record One, yes.
Record One.
That's right.
So you will rotate between the 3 different locations all the time.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So first off, what do you... like all of us do everything. We engineer, we mix, we produce. Is there anything you do more of that you think, or?
Here's the thing. These days I'm producing more than, but not in reality, no. Let me take that back. Mm-hmm. I'm engineering more than I'm producing, only because I'm engineering the projects that I produce.
Right, of
but
course.
I produce a lot, and I think that that's where my career has taken me. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy just mixing.
Yeah.
I mean, just mixing to me is one of the most creative and fulfilling experiences.
Yeah,
taking somebody else's job, work, and in a way making it your own also, making your own contribution to it and your proposal, and fucking up the project and see what happens, see what they say.
Right, exactly.
And hopefully you have you score most of the time.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So they want you.
Yes. Exactly.
And that's how you build a mixed engineering career. Yeah.
Right. Right. One of the things I like to talk about on the podcast a lot is how to get great performances out of artists. Can you walk us through your process for working with an artist to get a great performance?
I think that you have to learn to read people.
Yeah.
Number one, that's the first thing. The moment they step in the room, you have to identify how they're feeling.
Right.
That's the first step. And I am actually very grateful to my medical years.
Okay.
Because that's what we did 24/7.
Interesting.
Reading people.
Right.
Because number one, most diseases are psychosomatic.
Yeah.
Are auto-generated by your own state of mind, your predisposition to getting sick, to feel failure, to
right.
And we sabotage ourselves in terms of our health all the time. And as a doctor, in the psychology, we took a lot of psychology classes.
Right.
Those kind of that kind of training, even without being related to psychiatry. Right. Just by the sake of being a good reader and being able to interact with your patients. So I treat it the same way.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah.
They are our patients in that very moment. They become our patients. And we are there to, number one, really learn what they're all about, how they feel.
Right.
And reading between lines. They might be telling you, oh, they're feeling so great, and automatically, they're like so fucking scared, they're feeling like shit, like this is not going to happen. But you learn to read the expressions, their demeanor, how they treat other people, especially not even you, but other people. Read how they work out the room themselves, So I think a lot of it has to do with that, because that moment when you have that information, if you have the skills, you can create an environment that's going to be conducive to them easing up, or if needed, to even be a little bit nervous about it.
Right.
Sometimes it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
You have to create a tension in the room in order for things to really happen. So it's,
That's interesting. Nice. I just want to take a quick break and tell you about my free guide for creating massive snare sounds. In it, I go over all my techniques, from drum choices, tuning, microphone placements, even mixing techniques. Check it out now at brendandecora.com/huge snare. And now, back to the show. How do you, what part does the environment play? The lighting in the room, the temperature,
to me, super important.
Yeah.
And I know it's super important because I see how people change when, things are right. And because I'm very sensitive to that myself.
Right.
When I go into a room, the first thing I pay attention to is the lighting, actually.
Yeah.
The first thing.
Right.
The lighting. I mean, it has to be a cozy environment, or maybe the opposite if you are trying to provoke something else, right?
Right.
But you have to be able to manipulate the mood in the room. And in order to do it, every time I go to a studio, one of the first things I always ask is, do you have like table lamps or standing lamps, things so we can even turn off some of the lights, in the room and just use those, like you will do in your living room, right?
Yeah.
And create that kind of intimate, that kind of intimacy, and it works. It really does.
Yeah. And how do you handle, like when you're mixing? How do you handle the varying quality of tracks that you receive?
I handle it by being super optimistic.
There you go.
A cheerleader. I'm an optimistic person because sometimes we get crap.
Yeah.
That's the reality. I mean, we do. And especially now that everybody is an engineer.
Yeah.
Right? Or everybody takes that role. Everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Even, I don't know, even the artist's son or something. Even if the son is like 4 years old. I don't know.
Of course.
But everybody does. So you get all kinds of tracks, especially not just the quality of the, of close miking. It usually has to do with more with the ambiances.
Yeah.
How ambiances leak into the microphones. I swear to you, sometimes I think that the microphone is pointed to the others in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes you get like, no way that vocal was tracked.
Right.
They were probably singing to it, like this way. Right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no way, that's an SM7.
I've actually had that before, where I've told the client to take a picture of the setup.
Me too.
Like, yo, turn the mic around.
Me too.
That's awesome.
No, I'm pointing where it has the the controls.
Yeah.
Where you're like, no. Usually it's the logo.
Exactly.
Trying to talk to the logo.
Exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
And do you do, when you're mixing, do you do like projects where you're only mixing and the clients are remote? Or is it all producing stuff?
I do a lot of those too, yeah.
Okay.
I do. I mean, that's the thing. We do so much remote work. I was just doing one today.
Yeah.
And two yesterday, for final approvals of mixes usually.
Right.
Once they got the first mix or the second one and, it's super clear the fine tuning that they need or they want to explore. Very often they don't even want to change. They don't end up changing much or anything.
Right.
But they want to be allowed to have the opportunity for their own peace of mind.
Yeah.
Of exploring. What if we use the other rooms on the drums? Do you try? And you tell them, this is the best outcome. But they need to also experiment and try. And then you do it for them. Go, oh no, you're right. Go back.
Right.
So it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a human process.
Of course.
So I really understand the need for it because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And everyone wants to have their input too. It's like I knew a friend of mine, their mom, when they were little, their mom would tell them to clean their room and they would clean it perfectly and then purposely leave one sock in the middle of the floor just so the mom could have something to say. Because if it was perfect, then she would go and find something else that was wrong. Yeah, just had to say
that
something.
Was easier,
yeah, exactly. And how do you approach working with different genres in your mixes? Do you adjust your techniques accordingly?
I do adjust my techniques, and I love it. Like, for example, yesterday I was doing something classical. It's a concerto, like the Schubert pieces. I recorded this in New York.
Right.
And today I'm doing like a hip hop artist from Chile, Anatiju. And finished that mix, and tomorrow, actually I do have to work tomorrow, even though it's a Sunday, but tomorrow I'm doing like a live show, 25 songs from a live show. And we're doing fine tuning of the transitions in between songs and all that.
Right.
So, and then next thing is a pop thing. And so I'm all over the place.
Right.
But,
of course.
But I love it. I think that to me, it brings life into my world. It brings excitement and lack of security in the sense of I'm always, on, in that fine line, am I going to be great or am I going to suck?
Yeah, exactly.
And I love it. I love the challenge. I've done everything from opera, I've done everything from opera to hip hop to music for movies to anything in between.
Right.
And alternative music, all kinds of indie music to whatever it might be. But I need to like the music, obviously. I need to like the project, but I like music. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If there is a great song, I like it.
Right. And when you're producing an artist, how do you help them find their unique sound or their sonic signature in a way? Work with pre-production, that kind of stuff.
I think that one of the first here's one part of the process that to me is very, very important. When you are pre-producing a project and they come to you, what they're really looking out of you, what they're really looking for is your intuition about things.
Right.
Because they already work out their intuition to a point and they exhausted it.
Yeah.
And they need not just a second opinion, they need a second intuition.
Right.
For the project, right?
Right.
And what happens during that process too is that you learn that at that stage, usually the artist is looking for reference points.
Yeah.
They're comparing themselves to everything else in the fucking world.
Yeah.
They're comparing themselves to A, B, C, Z. And you don't get uniqueness and greatness from comparison, comparing yourself to anything. So you need to start ditching that process and stopping that process, or you have to help them stop that process and have an opinion based on something else, based on themselves. What do you truly like? What are you really about? What's your fucking essence? Oh, we did this way because everybody said. How will you do it? That's usually the case. People tell because everybody else in the band told me, or even the manager told me, or the A&R told me. How will you do it? And then you find out, maybe you find something truly amazing from them. That's truly unique.
Yeah.
So I think that's our role really during the pre-production process. And then obviously you can further exploit that kind of attitude during the recording process, and that's your duty to do so. But it starts with pre-production, definitely.
Nice. And can you talk about a particularly memorable collaboration you had with an artist, and how you both inspired each other?
Oh, I have had so many over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, really had so many, and even some that were so experimental. Where you go like, what? What are we doing? But I don't know. I feel so fortunate because I had so many of those over the years. But very recently, I was producing a band from New York, Flor de Toloache, and I remember I had John Legend here, and it was the first time he was really performing in Spanish and singing in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And it was an amazing process to coach him, but he didn't really need that much coaching, even in terms of mimicking, the words. And he put the effort. I mean, he knew what they meant. It wasn't like he was just mimicking. No.
Yeah.
It was much more than that.
Nice.
It was... Or, for example, recently I'm co-producing a new Linda Ronstadt thing with John Boylan. And I went to record an artist. I cannot mention who it was, but an artist, I produced that vocal track where he was singing to this Linda track. And we just chose this artist because we thought he would be perfect for this collaboration, this duet. And in the moment, and this was all recorded on video because we're also recording the making of the project, right? And he was like, he actually mentioned it to camera, do you know the song that you chose for me is the first song that I sang professionally in a show, in a sort of like Broadway type of production thing. And we had no idea. And that was like his debut song.
Right.
I was freaking. I was like, what?
That's crazy.
and it was so memorable,
right. That's cool.
To be part of that.
And how do you stay up to date with new music trends when you're producing and keep fresh ideas?
I'm always listening to new music, but I'm always surrounded by young guys too.
Okay.
Young guys, like my assistants, some new up and coming, producers, engineers that I work with. And I like to hear what they like and why they like it, to understand why they like it. Because the first wall is the understanding of why.
Right.
Why do they like this? And they might like it for other reasons than you will think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a social thing. Maybe it's a mix of elements that they really think makes it super special.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah,
that's cool. Similar to the other question, but kind of opposite. Can you give an example of a particularly challenging artist you have worked with and how you motivated them to deliver a great performance?
Well, I think the most challenging thing of working with an artist is to work with an artist that doesn't want to collaborate.
Okay, yeah.
To me, it's an artist that it's 100% certain that what he's got or she's got is it.
Right.
And no matter what you do, it's not going to move the needle.
Yeah.
They're going to want to go back to the freaking demo. And then you go like, release the freaking demo.
Right.
And I've done it. I mean, I actually, even the very few times where I didn't succeed at working with an artist, it happened like that. And it has been very few times, but the artist didn't want to change a thing.
Right.
They were actually comparing to the freaking, 16th of an inch, how it sounded different from what they got. And then you'll ask, so why do you want to change it?
Right.
No, I don't, but
it's like,
we need to mix it.
Why are we here?
We need to mix it. I'm like, no, wait a minute. That's not how it works.
Right.
We're wasting our time. And we're wasting money.
Exactly. Exactly. What are some techniques that you've developed over the years that you feel are unique to your mixing style?
Well, I think the fact that I try to never I try to never listen to the rough mix.
Really?
From the get-go.
Wow.
I take a chance. I always do. I always do. And actually, it's a technique that I've developed over the years. I have my assistants listen to the rough mix.
Right.
Not me.
Okay.
They listen to the rough mix and compare to the existing tracks. Only for the only reason that I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything in the song.
Right. Missing parts or something.
Missing parts, yeah. Or having the wrong tracks, the wrong performance for something. Right. And if there is something that's different from the rough mix, then we get to ask, okay, why is this different? We retract the drums and we change this.
Right.
Okay, we changed the horn, the brass section because we got a new arrangement. Okay, it makes sense.
Right.
Then everything is fine. But I don't get to listen to it and get, in a way, contaminated by their current vision of the track. And then I do my thing. I open all of the tracks, listen to it. I go, oh, this could go like this. And I make my own. And then when I'm pretty confident, I put quite some work on it. I mean, quite a lot of work.
Right.
Close to my own final, I listen to the rough.
Okay.
And then I go, oh, shit. Or not. Or I go,
right.
oh, okay.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Maybe I'm missing something because my intuition didn't go in the same direction. Right. But I'd rather try my own thing and waste some time rather than just try to copy. Same thing I was mentioning about pre-production with an artist, trying to always use points of reference.
Right.
I try to avoid the point of reference.
Okay. Right.
And we all have points of references. I mean, I even have reference mixes I listen to, I compare to, but not to the rough mix of the same song, but other stuff that inspires me for some reason, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the low end, or maybe how it kicks, or
of course,
whatever, how the vocals sit in the mix, whatever it might be. But then again, I try not to copycat.
Right.
Yeah.
I find it varies with me. Like, I do a lot of mixing now too, and sometimes you get a rough mix and it's not good. And the client doesn't like it either.
Sometimes it kicks ass.
Sometimes it's awesome though, and it's like, I really have to copy this a lot, because I spent time. But you really have to just judge, per project.
And sometimes when you listen to the rough mix after you had done your thing, maybe there might be like one element that you really love about the rough mix. It could be the snare. It could be anything. It could be how those backgrounds, sit with the main vocal, or it could be how they are pan and move, or something. And then you go like, okay, that I should actually bring into my mix.
Right.
But I try to start from a different point. Yeah.
Nice. And how do you help artists to stay focused and motivated through a long recording session?
Well, it is their project. I always remind them it is their project. Number one, let's be real.
Right.
Sometimes we forget that, right? We think like, oh, we have to push. and sometimes what we have to do is remind the artists that they have to push.
Yeah.
It is their project. It's not my picture, my photo that's going to go in the album cover.
Right.
It's theirs.
Yes.
And I tell them that, jokingly, I tell them, if you want my picture in the album cover, it's fine. But I think that you should work harder,
Right. And similar question, but how do you help an artist feel comfortable and confident in the studio?
But enforcing the good things about them, not reminding them about the bad things.
Right.
Because usually they are already aware of the bad things. They usually are. I mean, even in the back of their mind, even if it's not like in front of them, in the back of their mind, they know. Oh, this is not good enough. Or even in terms of the arrangement, or, this guitar part is not what it should be. Or they're like, so reminding them of the good things and trying to push forward to good things. And then you throw a curveball to them. What if, this part is like, without being offensive about it, without telling them, the bridge sucks. No, you don't say that. But you go like, let's work something out. Now that we have this idea for the end of the chorus, for the tag, what if we try to go to the harmony, go to this, and then you work something out, and hopefully something better will come out.
Yeah.
But being with positive reinforcement,
of course.
And sometimes you have to apply some negative reinforcement when things are going south. They really are going south. But that's the last resort for me. Yeah.
Right. I always like to ask my guests if you can talk about any current or recent projects you've been working on.
Well, I'm working so many things lately. I mean, Anna Tijoux, the urban artist I was mentioning, is very exciting. I'm going to be doing some orchestral projects in Abbey Road, like in August, with the Royal Philharmonic that are going to be great.
Nice.
I'm sure they're going to be great. And there are so many projects I'm working on. It's just, I don't even remember. But yeah, it's a lot of it, pretty soon I'm going to be mixing the Harlem Quartet, which I really love, the Harlem String Quartet, a new project with 7 songs, which is truly amazing.
Nice.
Truly, truly amazing. I don't know. I like to work on projects that bring excitement to my life.
Right.
Not just to theirs, but sometimes I do it very selfishly for me.
Yeah.
I don't do it for them only. Right. I do it for myself, you know. I want that.
Right.
I want to do that. And you have to be selfish. People talk a lot about ego. You must not have an ego. I think that's a bunch of crap. I think that you need to have a big ego doing this somehow, but good ego. But you need to have that ego, and the artist needs to have an ego.
Well, because if
everybody's got to have an ego.
Yeah, and if you're doing a project you're excited about, then you do a better job. The project does better. Everything's better.
And you have to, when you're certain, you have to be 200% certain. Do you know that that you are leading? That's what needs to happen.
Right.
You cannot just be an assertive all the time, and everybody, oh, what do you think? It's like, no, you have to go like, shit, this is it.
Right.
There is a point where everybody in the team, the engineer, the producer, the musician, the artist, everybody needs to have those kind of moments.
Right.
And being very assertive about what we're doing.
Right.
It's like when they ask me, are you sure the mix is done? I'm fucking sure.
Right.
Like, what do you mean?
Mix was done on mix one
like,
for
fuck
me.
You. I'm 100% sure because I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I'm not just bullshitting to,
Right. Yeah.
not to spend more time on the mix.
Right.
Just the opposite. I like to be challenged. And I am very suspicious. I always mention this. Super, super suspicious of people that tell me that everything is great. When I'm working on a project, either producing or mixing or engineering, when everybody says like, oh, it's awesome, it's always awesome. Any changes, anything you change, like nothing. Right. I go like, you gotta be brain dead or something. I don't trust these people.
Where's the sock on the floor?
Yes. Where's the sock in the floor?
Yes.
These people are brain dead.
Yes.
Get me out of here. No, but seriously, I am super suspicious and also very uncomfortable with that because I like to be challenged and I need to have somebody telling me, no, this could be better or this other part could be better. And maybe they're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's the best that it can be.
We try it.
And yeah, but we do need to be challenged. Everybody needs to be challenged.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a cumbersome process. Like people think, oh, it's going to take days. Like, no, it can be like in 3 seconds, in a few minutes, challenge what's happening, try something else. Or,
exactly.
And then Yeah.
Exactly. Nice. I like to wrap up each podcast with the same set of questions. The first one is, what is your most influential teacher?
My most influential teacher. Wow, there were a few when I was... Actually, I have to say my first mentor, Jose Angel Serrano, who was the first person I worked with, he was my most influential teacher because I would be in a live show with him when everything was going down. I mean, major problems, like something like, I feel like we're gonna fucking die. This is bad. And he would be calm as hell and he would tell me, okay, let's do this. He'll be super calm. And he was the one risking his own money and his own everything. And I remember, many situations with international artists, you know, he will bring like artists like big ones, Peter Gabriel. I mean, and there will be like artists that I remember working with the Pogues, the Irish band, because we'll do all of the big shows of folk music, the Chieftains, all those kind of shows too. And I remember the Pogues, he, by 3 p.m., he had already drunk like, I don't know, four bottles of whiskey, right? So, yeah, and Jose Angel will be like super calm and, giving everybody instructions and always keeping calm. And I learned so much from him. And obviously, when I started working at Ocean Way, I was super lucky. I worked a lot with, Ed Cherney, George Massenburg, Alan Sides,
Right.
I mean, all of the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Basically everybody, Al Smith,
Right.
I work with them all over the years. So, yeah, that was my school.
Right.
And you learn a little bit from every single
From
one
all
because
of them.
everybody's got a
Exactly.
different personality.
Yeah.
Glyn Johns, his brother Andy Johns, all of them had a completely different personality, but they got the job done in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not about mimicking them, but it's about grabbing what actually, connects with your personality.
Right.
Because you have to enforce that. I mean, if it doesn't go with your personality, screw it. I mean, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next question is, what is your favorite reference track? If you have to go to a studio and learn the room, figure out the speakers.
I have a collection of them because, some for the low end, some for, the full stereo, spread, things like that. There's even a couple of tracks that I've done that, I consider, are like, very revealing to me,
Right.
Some stuff I did with the stereo, things like that. But, there are a couple of George's tracks, with Lyle Lovett that, for example, to me are like, give me so much information. It's like, fuck it.
Right.
Michelle and the Jello too, that
Wait,
low end.
which track though? Because someone else said a Lyle Lovett track that George
The one that
Massenburg
starts
did.
with the piano. What's the name of
Okay.
it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
This track is from the early 90s, actually.
Okay.
1990, I would say 91,
Right,
92. But
Nice.
yeah, I have several because each one of them give me different information. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Last question. What would be one tidbit you have for an upcoming engineer?
You have to be super open to learning because you don't know shit.
Right.
And I apply that to myself. I still don't know shit. So how could you?
Right.
That's how I think.
Right.
How could you know if I still don't know shit,
Exactly.
after these many years doing this? But also, be patient.
Yeah.
Learn to be patient and take some psychology classes, even online.
Yeah.
It's super useful.
Interesting.
Learn about people.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the most useful skills you're going to need in your career.
Right. Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the
thank
show.
you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for checking out the show. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review or comment. I'll see you next week.